Trying to boost my subscribers, I'm trying to maintain the vision. People that know me closest live different than what they show me. It's hard to feel like they know me when I'm just scrolling through images. Truth be told, I feel pain, but I'm on the pinnacle. Been chasing this music thing for a minute though. Know some good people that never see success. And here I am sitting worried about show appearances.
Hello, everyone. I'm Angeline, and she's Risa, and we welcome you to Season 4, Episode 157 with the Quickness.
Happy Tuesday, everyone.
Happy Tuesday indeed. Today, we're going to share our takeaways from the March 18th, 2025 sermon given at First Baptist Church of Lincoln Gardens in Somerset, New Jersey, and a past sermon given at Lily Grove Missionary Baptist Church in Houston, Texas. So, Risa, what was your big takeaway from First Baptist this week?
Faith won't allow the details to derail divine directives.
Okay. My big takeaway was faith understands that the promise involves pain and provision. What was your takeaway from Lily Grove Missionary Baptist Church?
We must reflect on the ways God has made a way, even in the most challenging times.
Okay. My takeaway was we should celebrate and honor God not just after miracles, but during them. So we're going to get to those two sermons a little later in the broadcast, but right now it's time for Risa's playlist. So Risa, what's the song of the week this week?
Are we ready? It's time.
We narrowed it down to one song. This is Song of the Week, currently featured on With the Quickness Spotify playlist.
So the song of the week this week is actually called Most High by the Christian group, Transformation Worship, featuring Christian Spalding and Ty Tribbett. It's from their September 2024 album titled Thy Kingdom Come. And just a little background about Transformation Worship. Around April of 2024, Pastor Michael Todd introduces the first collective from Represent Records called Transformation Worship, birthed out of the Transformation Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Transformation Worship seeks to represent God with a kingdom sound for a transformation in Christ. Since its inception in 1999, worship has remained a cornerstone of Transformation Church's beliefs and values. Under the visionary leadership of Pastor Michael Todd, who assumed stewardship of the music industry in 2010, worship at Transformation Church has continually evolved, guided by a prophetic vision of global impact. Transformation Church invites those around the world to join them on the journey of spiritual transformation, where worship transcends mere ritual to become a lifestyle. And a fun fact about Transformation Worship, the group, they actually released 4 albums in 2024. So their first album was titled Undefeated Champion, came out in November. Then it was their second one, Thy Kingdom Come, in September of that year.
Okay.
Then in July, they released Dominion. And then in May, they released an album titled Overflow.
Well, I love the song you selected. I really do. What was the kind of vibe you felt when you were listening to it?
So it's definitely one of those like feel good songs, and it's very like upbeat. So that's why I picked the song.
Yeah, when I was listening to it, Risa, it reminded me of that video Summertime that Will Smith and DJ Jazzy Jeff did, because it had all the things about summer that you like. It had them at the pool. It had them on the basketball courts. It had them in the dirt bike, the bike ramps and everything. And then it had them at the end at the roller skating rink. All the things you like to do when you don't have to worry about school or work anymore and you're just off for like summer break. And the teenagers, oh my gosh, all of those young people, I think they probably had them from like young 16 all the way up to like, in their mid 20s, early 30s. They could dance their tails off. And I don't know if all of them come from the church or not, but they are very gifted dancers too.
Yeah, the dancers are like incredibly gifted. So I think they all come from the church, if I'm not mistaken, but I have to double check on that.
It kind of made me want to do the dance. even though it's like the song is like a year old, it made me want to do their dance because they were having so much fun. Like there wasn't one person that wasn't smiling and enjoying themselves. And I don't know how many times they did the dance for the video, and we put the video on our website. But it's just a feel good. It makes you feel good. It makes you bob. So when did it come on your radar? When did you hear about this song?
Honestly, I heard this song like last week
Mm-hmm.
when I was like basically I had my Spotify on shuffle, so it came up through because Spotify has this feature. It's called, I believe, a smart shuffle.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll just play songs that are similar to whatever song that I had picked initially. It'll play songs that are kind of similar to that. So when it came up on my algorithm, I was like, wait, I've never heard this song before, so I had to add it to our playlist. And then I found out it came out last year, so I was like, oh.
Does that deter you? That doesn't deter me when I hear a good song, because I know when it comes to some music genres, I can't listen to everything. So even though it's old, does that bother you at all that it was like a year ago if it first came out?
No, it didn't bother me that it came out like a year ago. I was just kind of like, I'm surprised I didn't hear it last year when it first came out. So I was just like, I was a little shocked by that. But then I was like, I got over it because honestly, with me and music, like I try my best to try to like stay up to date with what comes out. But because there's so much coming out right now, presently, things will rightfully fall through the cracks. I'm like, that's okay.
And some things are regional. Like the group Fire is known for New Jersey. So we'll hear it here in New Jersey before the rest of the nation hears it. So maybe the same thing with these singers. You won't hear their stuff and their albums until later on because it's like a grassroots type of thing. Like their region will hear about it way before we will.
Right, because the fact that they released 4 albums last year, and I'm just like, wait, what? I had no idea. But then again, like we just said, like the group and the church is based in Oklahoma. So by the time we hear it over here in Jersey, we're a little late. And I could acknowledge that. But
I was a little worried. I went to their website to watch, to see some of the other songs. And what's the name of the group again? I mean, their official name?
it's Transformation Worship.
Yeah, Transformation Worship. I went to their YouTube site and they were singing a song. And when they went to jumping, the people on stage were jumping. The people in the crowd of the church were jumping. I worried about the foundation, how much jumping was going on. I'm not going to lie. They were like, the camera guy must have been jumping because it's moving a certain way, the camera, right? And I was like, I know you guys are feeling the Holy Spirit and enjoying yourself. But part of me is also thinking about supporting beams, nuts, bolts, things of that sort, because I've been watching too much 911 lately, Risa. I just started the series. I've never watched it before. So I'm thinking about everything that could possibly go wrong when I see certain things now.
I'm like a huge fan of 911. Like I binged watched it. I started watching that show, I want to say about 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like because of that show, I noticed things like that too. Like if something could possibly happen because of what I saw on that show, I try to be super cautious about it. But I will say you should definitely have some tissues on standby because that show did make me cry a couple times. Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad you added this song to our season 4 playlist because we're moving into the summer months. This is going up. I mean, we're almost going to be at Memorial Day before you know it.
I know. And I also think too, because Pastor Mike Todd like basically made this group in 2024, I wonder if it's going to inspire other churches to have like, I don't know, like I know churches have their own choirs and things of that sort, but to have a group kind of similar to this for their own church, I wonder if they're going to do that just to, highlight different talent.
Wouldn't that be cool? I mean, I think more young people, they're drawn to their music. They just are. I mean, since you can remember, there's been a teenager with headsets on or locking themselves in the room listening to their albums, or their CDs or whatever it was. So to reach reach youth in that way and say, okay, you're going to be part of the young adult choir. And if you wish to audition for this certain group over here that's going to sing this kind of music, yeah, that would be kind of thrilling. I mean, I think the bad thing about it is everybody's wondering about record deals and money and stuff like that. Can you keep it where it's just mostly along the faith, or is everybody going to be like, New Edition, where's our money? Everybody signing contracts and wanting to know where the money is for all these kids that are a part of this.
Well, yeah, but like but if the focus is just based on, hey, we're getting everybody together just to express themselves and be able to create community and like and actually create like original music that they can just sing
Mhm.
along their peers, I think that might be a great thing because the fact that this is happening in Oklahoma, there could be something in the tri-state area or even the South. I don't know, something.
Yeah, I think a lot of churches are that's how they're getting the youth to come back. And you can see some churches have such a big youth presence and some it's very scarce. It's all about reaching them on what they communicate with, whether it's social media, whether it's music. Some of them love spoken word, some of them like acting and like performing. So if you can reach them where they're at, that's how you're going to grow a big chunk of, or at least draw a big chunk of the youth there. And once you get them there, then you have to remind them how much Christ loves them, etc. And youth will bring other youth. If you're having a great time at church or at a function or an event, you're going to bring people that that, hey, you should come to church with me. I hear it all the time when I teach in my college courses as a professor. They'll say to each other, oh, we're doing XYZ at my church, you should come, because you're excited, you had a good time, and what your church is doing is great.
Yeah, I do think having like those types of functions and those types of get-togethers definitely helps people not only come together, but it also helps them like create and like maintain an actual
Mhm.
community.
Isn't it a lot of pressure though too to expect youth to sing a certain way? It reminds me of when Joe Clark had everyone singing the new anthem, and he would stop you in the hallway to sing the song on "Lean on Me." And if you didn't have good rhythm, or you were pitchy in the way you sang, it didn't land right. I mean, those that were talented, it was a good thing to stop them and know the anthem. But those that felt put on notice by your principal, that kind of pressure, I don't know.
But see, I was thinking more like along the lines of like Sister Act 2 with like Whoopi
Mm.
Goldberg, where it's like, okay, like you have these talented people that may feel like, oh, I want to, but I'm not quite sure. But you just need like that special person that can be like, hey, you're meant to be here. Let's figure out what your strengths are, and then let's pair everybody up and let it rip.
Yeah, it's like Sister Act. It's also like Praise This. Remember that movie where she just came in and they took secular sounds and they gave it up to the Lord by singing for the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like, you're on to something. If that's what's really drawing people in, if that's what's making everyone on the stage jump up and down and everybody in the congregation jump like that, like I saw, it was kind of like, I felt like I was at a concert that they had so many lights and strobes. My thing is like, did I enter a concert all of a sudden? It felt very concert like, and I kind of wondered about that.
Yeah, like I only brought that up because I just noticed this when I was like doing my research on them. Like
Hmm.
prior to me finding out about them, obviously everybody knows I'm into Maverick City, right? And then even after that, I want to say it was last week, Adrienne Bailon and her husband Israel Houghton just released another album called Quarteritos version 1, and it consists of Adrian, her husband, her sister, and like all these other church goers, where it's like I'm starting to see like different collectives like
Hmm.
have these type of like worship albums, which are great. But then I'm wondering, like, I wonder if that could inspire other churches to have something like that in their church, because like I think it would be great to have a Maverick City or a Transformation Worship come to your church. But if you can't, like, I'm pretty sure there's talent within the church
Yeah.
that may want to have that outlet to be
Hmm.
able to be like, hey, let's do something like this and be able to support our community.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So anyone that wishes to hear this week's song of the week, they can go to www.withthequickness.com, and they can go on the playlist tab and actually see the video that we were talking about for this song. I mean, it's really well done. Everyone involved was having a wonderful time, including Pastor Mike Todd, who kicks everything off. And it's also on the mega mix on Spotify and the regular season 4 mix for With the Quickness. Right, Risa?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for adding to the podcast today. I really appreciate you. And as you can see, I'm doing something different with my head wraps and things. What you think?
It's definitely giving me the vibe of Queen Mother from Wakanda mixed
Mhm.
with Mama Odie from The Princess and the Frog. And after that
Mama
with Lo.
Odie. That is
Yeah.
true. That's true. I have some gumbo cooking up right now, right, while I'm doing this.
Well,
Um,
yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a mix of the two. You're absolutely right. Queen mother mixed with, the cook of the house kind of.
Well, yeah, I only said that because the glasses, because Mama Odie has
Yeah,
glasses in the
she does.
movie.
She
So
does. Exactly. It does make me feel like I should know what spices should go into what recipes, and I should also be able to give words of wisdom, you know, and
and
be
both of
fierce about my family, fiercely protective, like, the mother and the queen mother in Wakanda,
right,
Romanda. Yeah.
and both of those things you do very well. So I'm like, hey, the perfect
Oh,
mix.
thank you. Thank you. I like to mix it up. I had a hat on at one point, this month. I said, I'm gonna, be a little regal. Maybe next time you see me, I might slay it like you and blow dry my hair all out or something. But
Hey,
thank you for noticing. I did a little bit of a change and that you liked it. Thank you.
you're welcome.
If it goes over, great, and if it doesn't go over well, that's all right. I'll do another color for another time. I'll do it in white. Maybe I like it better in white. When I first saw myself like this, the first thing I thought was Game of Thrones, where she goes, "Tell Cersei I did it." That's what I felt at first. I felt like that a little bit because head wraps kind of make you feel. And then I think you said, I reminded you of another Disney character
Oh yeah, like you also reminded, well, only because for the Hunchback of was it the Hunchback of
of Notre
Notre
Dame.
Dame? Yeah, Notre Dame. Yeah, so the guy in there, but the guy was evil though. He wasn't a nice person. So I was like, let
Yeah,
me be
don't compare me
nice.
to an evil dude just because like, we both have a head wrap on. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
like he had like his wasn't even a head wrap. It was just like it was a hat. I believe is like based in like in Europe. So they have like
Okay.
those fancy hats. But
Okay. Okay. Well, I might bring this back. I mean, I also got a little Eartha Kitt vibe. Marcus.
yeah, like it definitely. I think when I initially saw it, I first thought of Eartha Kitt because I could have swore that she did a guest appearance on Living Single,
And she had
and
a head
she
wrap.
yeah,
Yeah.
she had a head wrap and she had like the long cigarette because it like it was a throwback to old Hollywood. So I was like,
Hmm.
oh,
Well, the reason why I like wearing them, even though I do have my hair, is because when women are going through chemotherapy and they lose their hair, the first thing they feel really self conscious about is putting on scarves and head wraps to cover the baldness because they don't normally wear those things. And just like are normalizing in the Black community to be more natural and wear your natural hair or have shortcuts and not so much processing, it should be normalized that we also can wear head wraps when we choose to. It's a choice. It's not something that it can be a protective style. It could be something you do when you just want to look more pulled together. But it's not just when you're fighting a battle of cancer. You can also tap into your heritage and wear a head covering or a head scarf. Our Muslim sisters wear hijabs. So it's like it's just tapping into culturally what would has existed in our own race for a long, long time.
yeah, I agree. Like I know when it's like super hot outside and I'm not trying to deal with my hair, a head wrap is on, and I have
Yeah,
nice
for a
hair
brief
insurance.
moment because it's hot. You can't do it
Yeah,
too much of a hot. You can't do it in June like that the way you want to. You might have to do something lighter or lighter fabrics. But yeah, that's the reason why I wanted to wear it too. I want anyone that is going through any struggle and they go out and they see someone wearing a head wrap. It doesn't have to, but they're wearing it in solidarity. They feel less conscious because they're not the only one wearing a head wrap. When they see, it's almost like seeing somebody with a fro. You have your natural hair out in a fro, and you feel self conscious because your hair is not as long as it normally is in the protective styles with the braids or whatever. And then you see someone else with a fro, and you both give each other a look and go, "Nice hair." Like, yeah, your hair looks nice too. Little acknowledgement that yeah, I see you, and you're good. You still look beautiful, kind of thing.
yeah. Like I live for the big curly fros. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're like
Yeah.
that to me is art to me.
It is. It is. God bless those girls that can do it. Because I know when my hair gets to the big fro part, sometimes I'm like, I just want to pull it back in a ponytail because it's just too hot. Sometimes the fro would be like in the summertime feeling like a hat, Risa. It's like I love my fro, but at the same time, if it's a humid day and it's hot and humid, it feels like a hat.
Yeah,
I just
like
can't do it.
that's the thing, like, because it's like for like my natural hair, obviously, like when there's heat, it will revert. So it's like
Yeah,
I don't got time to be playing with that.
true. True.
No,
So once again, thanks so much for Song of the Day. I hope everybody gets a chance to listen to it because I loved it. I think it's a great song. It's a good way to go into Memorial Day weekend. So thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, now let's move on to the bulk of our show. Let's stop over at the Sunday service at First Baptist Church of Lincoln Gardens in Somerset, New Jersey. The praise and worship ministry had the youth. It was all about the youth this Sunday. It was Youth Sunday. And they were singing and they were saying the prayers and they were doing announcements. They were all over the place. And they looked good, right, Risa?
They did.
Yeah, with their white and tan. I like how they decided to do that. A lot of churches, when, certain choirs sing, they'll have like white shirts and black slacks and skirts. And I like how the youth they did a play on it, but they did tan. It was more youthful. It was more springtime feeling. And they were enjoying themselves. It's what I liked the most. Every song they sang, they really enjoyed it.
Yeah, they definitely were having a great time and jamming out.
So I think they would actually appreciate what you were saying about a lot of churches are, making musical moments for their own youth, and finding ways to engage them. Like if that group that we saw this Sunday got together and said, we want to do our own version of XYZ song, I would listen to it. I'd buy it. I'll download it, because they were pretty good. I mean, they have to work on some things, but it would be pretty good. The musicians were great backing them up. So I would just love to see them try to do anything like that. But just having them, period, once a month was really nice.
Yeah, like just to have them with the band and just having like that jam session, I'm sure it was amazing.
It really, really was. So this Sunday's sermon at First Baptist was titled, They're Not Like Us. The speaker was Reverend Dr. Danté Quick. His scripture was Numbers chapter 14, verses 20 through 25 of the New Revised Standard Version of the Bible. This passage of scripture recounts the Lord's response to Moses' intercession after the Israelites' rebellion and murmuring against the spies' negative report about Canaan. The Lord initially forgave them, but then issued a decree that they will wander in the desert for 40 years, suffering for their unbelief, and that none of those who saw the signs in Egypt and in the wilderness, who had rebelled and tested the Lord, will enter the promised land. Only Joshua and Caleb are spared. Pastor Quick delivered an inspiring sermon that urged us to free our minds and lean on our faith through tough times. He reminded us that faith is a powerful tool that allows us to rise above fear, self-doubt, and the mental change we often place on ourselves. Drawing on Kendrick Lamar's poignant mega rap song, They Not Like Us, Pastor Quick challenged everyone to free themselves from mental and spiritual chains and step boldly into a life of purpose. He began his sermon by addressing how many of us are still carrying the weight of psychological burdens, shaped by generations of oppression and societal expectations. He urged us not to be defined by those who want to live their life in fear. Instead, he called the Black church to celebrate God's message of empowerment and of liberation. His words were a reminder that we are wonderfully and fearfully made, created with a purpose and potential. I like that, Risa. I like how he started reminding us about how powerful a people we are. What do you think?
I think it's like extremely important in this day and age to remember how powerful we are and where we come from, so people can, just move accordingly.
Exactly. Now, he gave 3 key messages in his sermon. One was faith won't allow difficulties to derail purpose. He encouraged us to remember that challenges are not the end of our story. He also told us to reframe the phrase, the devil is in the details, to God is in the details. He reminded us that God can handle even the most complicated struggles. Our ability to thrive through difficulty as a people just serves as a testament of his grace. He reminded also the congregation of how First Baptist Church of Lincoln Gardens began in a humble gas station, and yet by faith it grew into the thriving community that it is today. It starts with one person who allows faith to guide their life. I like how he, Risa, took the time to remind us to look backwards. Everybody forgets as we're going through this difficult season of remembering how far our, forefathers, ancestors, grandparents came to get us to where we are at this point.
Right, because again, like I feel like a lot of people, me included, sometimes can be so focused on the future and what's ahead that sometimes we forget to look back, especially when we're going through any type of hardship, to really acknowledge and understand that we have been through far worse, and that even though times may be hard right now, it's not going to last forever.
Exactly, exactly. The second point that Pastor Quick made was faith sees beyond pain to promise. Trials and pains are just part of the process, but so is provision. Drawing an analogy to grasshoppers that hide to blend in, Pastor Quick challenged us to reject the tendency to camouflage ourselves and to assimilate for safety. He emphasized that we must work for our freedom, not simply pray for it. He also revisited the dark history of drapetomania, a term once used to pathologize the desire for freedom among enslaved Blacks, to illustrate how deeply fear can imprison us. Pastor Quick reminded us to dream big because God created us to be more than we can imagine. I like that, Risa, because when it comes to all the young people that are graduating right now, they need to keep being told to dream big. Like just achieving your graduation isn't just enough. I mean, you worked hard. I mean, yes, all the tests and exams are over and everybody's celebrating you this May and this June, but you got to think beyond. What's the next step? Where do you see yourself? And are you limiting yourself in what you're thinking you can do? Or are you really just dreaming big?
Right. I think the first victory is, yes, graduating and getting your degree. Now the next step is trying to find that adults with benefits type of job, which
Yeah.
is going to be another,
I think it's great how he reminded the young people how mentally you can lock yourself in a position to the point where you don't think you can have freedom. There's some people that young people have never been outside of their home state or never been out of their own city before because their family doesn't travel like that, right? So their life can be in just a certain circumference of their city. And to have the opportunity to go to the next county or go to the next state or get on a plane and go to the next, country even, it actually opens your mind up to a lot. I was talking to your nana once and telling her, I said, you should travel more. I mean, now that you're older, don't you always think about maybe traveling? And she's like, no, there's nowhere I want to go. Because she's always afraid you're going to leave the country and not get back in. And a lot of people have that fear. I'm not going to travel because I'm scared what happens if I can't return to the United States. But if you let your whole life be fixed by the fears, and enslaved by the fears, like Pastor Quick says, you limit yourself the ability to dream bigger.
right. Like I've seen like a plethora of people on social media who will document their solo travels, whether it's, they're going to the city by themselves or going to a concert by themselves. They're going on a solo vacation by themselves. And like, yes, like I can understand the rationale of being afraid to do it because you're going by yourself. But when you see other people do it and they talk about the different safety protocols that they do to ensure that they can enjoy their trip adventure safely, it makes you want to at least try. Because I know that's what I did when I started going to concerts by myself. I was like, I'm gonna go because I was tired of like not going to shows because I didn't have anybody to go with.
And then you can start small. People go to the movies by themselves. They go eat at a nice restaurant by themselves. Even Pastor Quick does about it. He was eating in a nice restaurant. Why? Because he wanted to take himself out and go to a nice restaurant. And it's perfectly okay to do those things.
Yeah, like that was like before the pandemic hit. Like my favorite thing was to go to my local movie theaters by my house by myself because I was like,
Mm-hmm.
that's me time. And I haven't done it in a while because like life has just been lifing,
Mm-hmm.
but not in a bad way. Just like I've been doing other things, but I think starting small. Like if you have a dream of doing something big like going to the city or going to a concert, I would definitely suggest starting small by doing something
Mm-hmm.
like that. And then if you're able to do that, then try to broaden your horizons.
Yeah, and the thing is, you don't have to be totally without support. That's why we have these wonderful cell phones. And that's why people meet up. They say, oh, I'm going to drive my own car. I will meet you there rather than just come to your house and you all have to go over together and we all got to count heads to see if we're all in the car. Sometimes you can say, no, I'm taking my own car. So when I'm ready to leave and you guys are still having fun, I could still leave when I'm ready to leave. That's one thing about driving yourself. You can leave whenever you are ready to go. Then when you're riding with other people, you leave when the driver wants to leave.
Right. Like I feel like I learned that in high school and college. I was like, never again. Like it wasn't bad, but when I want to go, I want to go. Like I don't want to
Yeah.
stay too long.
Yeah, a lot of people realize that in high school and college when they are at certain parties because your friends wanted to go so bad, and you're like sitting there going, "Yeah, this party wasn't exactly what I thought it'd be. I'm ready to go." Exit stage left. Yeah, yeah.
Right, right.
Well, the third point that Pastor Quick made was faith recognizes favor when it shows up. God's favor doesn't always look the same for everyone, but it is always present. Pastor Quick urged the congregation to remember that when trials feel overwhelming and when we're on the verge of giving up, that's when we must take our struggles to God because God's love and favor will see us through if we just keep walking in faith. I love that point, Risa, to remind us that we're not in this by ourselves. We got to remember how powerful our God really is.
Yeah, it's true. It's like when you are at that point where you're just like, I don't know. You just
Mm-hmm.
gotta get on your knees and pray.
Yeah. I mean, prayer is like a lifeline. Like you were talking about before, we watched 911. I mean, sorry, I said too many ones. 911. And the thing about when you call that number, they're picking up. It's not like one of those businesses where you call like, oh, it might be after hours. I'm catching when I'm. No, there's always someone there. That's why you cannot play around when it comes to calling 911. It's for real emergencies. I liked how the show shows not only the emergencies, but also people that are calling for frivolous things that misuse it from time to time to remind us it's a lifeline. Prayer is also like a lifeline. It's a lifeline to our deity, our Heavenly Father, and his Son is right there advocating for us. So to use it like flippantly, like only when I need this from you, God, it's not a big deal. Is God in the mundane things, the small things? Yes. So there's nothing too small, which makes him different from the 911 calls that we make in our world. You can call him about anything. Like, Lord, I don't know if I should eat this for dinner or this for dinner. They're both good, but he's in the mundane, he's in the small. There's nothing too small to talk to him about. Yes, there are big things where you're on your knees, you're advocating, for someone, you're taking it very, very seriously. But it's also you're driving in your car and you want to pray to your Lord. You can pray to your Lord while you're driving your car. Don't close your eyes for Pete's sakes because you're driving. But yes, you can pray in a car.
Yeah, like I think for me, like when I was younger, I would only pray when I was like needing something. But then
Mm-hmm.
as I have gotten older and wiser, I like now view it as like having a conversation with God throughout the day, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
like, thank you for letting me get home safe, or as, like, or if I have some type of concern, then I'll be like, I have a concern. But it's like, I view it more as a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So I can continue to have that open dialogue with him. So it's like, I'm not only talking to him when I'm like in dire like strats. So I'm just like, that works for me.
Yeah, I think you said that very succinctly. For me, we got to remember we also have the Holy Spirit prompting us and helping us and guiding us. Maybe not everything is, has to be such a, reverent prayer where you say everything right and you quote scriptures back to God. He knows his scriptures. If you can do that, that's great. But if you don't do that, as a new believer in Christ, I want you all to know he's okay. If you can't, say a beautiful prayer like you hear in your churches on Sunday. And please be mindful that even a lot of them that are praying on behalf of a congregation, they wrote some stuff down. They're taking pieces of paper up there with them. There's not too many of them. There are some that can do it off the cuff, and really tap in, because they have a very strong prayer life or they're really good with words or have, no problem, public speaking. But other people need to jot down some notes, and it's okay. But does God expect you to do that in order to pray with him? No, your personal prayers are just that. They're personal.
Right.
Now,
And then
go ahead, Risa.
Oh, and then like I also think too, like to your point that you made earlier about when people call 911, like they can hear someone speaking with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know at first when I was like when I had rededicated myself back to Christ, and I'm just like I don't hear anything. So I'm just like sitting there like I'm just talking, I don't hear anything. But then again, to your point, he may not be talking back to me in that
Mm-hmm.
moment, but
Yeah.
throughout other different circumstances, I'll get a prompting. So
Yeah, it's a prompting. It's not like I think I said this in the podcast a long time ago. I don't know about other people. But as far as my God has been with me in my lifetime, he doesn't talk that much. Like he does not have all these, big long sentences and conversations with me like that. So people that goes, my God told me this and he told me this. He, if anything, I get impressions from the Holy Spirit, and every blue moon I'll get, an impression that is like the words are like almost in my head. I can hear do this. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to do it. And I do this, and I'm like trying to talk out of it. And I know when it's the Holy Spirit prompting me to do something, I'll have it. It's more repetitious. I can't get away from that impression. I need to do X, Y, Z. It's like a gnawing, like, oh, you need to do this. You need to do this. It feels like it's my voice, but it's not my voice because I don't even want to do what I'm being prompted to do.
Right.
Wasn't even thinking about doing whatever it was. And then I have things that say, remind me that it's a good job. Like I get a tightness in my throat, or I get close to tears, or the spirit gets really sweet in the room. I know that he's present in those things. When you get choked up.
Yeah, like I know for me, I've gotten a lot of promptings through different channels, whether it's
Yep.
A person, a situation.
Oh yeah, from the pulpit. Sometimes Pastor Quick says something else like the answer to something that was just said in my prayers this morning. Yep.
Literally, that happens more times than not.
Yeah, definitely. Now, ultimately, Pastor Quick's message was clear. His message was God did not create us to live in fear or limitation. He created us to grow, to thrive, and to lean on him when the path feels uncertain. Like Caleb in the Bible, we are reminded to act with courage, knowing that God's promises come with provision. And when we step forward in faith, we open the door to a life that exceeds our greatest expectations. So no matter what you're facing this week, don't let fear win. Lean on your faith. Trust that God is with you every step of the way. And watch how he transforms your trials into triumphs. So what did you think of the sermon, Risa? Did you like it?
I did like it. It was a very informative sermon, as always.
I think it was poignant for the time, don't you? Like, because everyone's full of fear about different things. And I think it really just reminded us, got to have faith through this. If he just keeps hitting us home with these faith sermons, every now and then to encourage us, I think we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay.
Yeah, I think so too. We just have to just, keep him in the mix, and, just sometimes we have to lean not on our own understanding.
Yeah. Reverend Dr. Danté R. Quick's sermon, They Not Like Us, was live streamed on May the 18th, 2025 on the FBC YouTube channel. So when you get a moment, please check it out. Now let's go on to Lily Grove Missionary Baptist Church in Houston, Texas. They posted a February 11th, 2024 sermon that we know you'll enjoy. It's titled Things Remembered. The speaker is Reverend Dr. Andre Jermaine Lewis, the senior pastor of New Faith Church in Houston, Texas. Now, the scripture he referred to was Joshua chapter 4, verses 1 through 3 and 1 through 9 of the New Revised Standard Version of the Bible. These passages of scripture are powerful. In Joshua chapter 4, verses 1 through 3, it instructs the Israelites to take 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan River as a memorial, one for each tribe, and to place them at their camp. This is to be a symbol of God's miraculous power in drying up the river for their passage. In Joshua chapter 4, verses 8 through 9, it describes how the Israelites carried out this instruction, placed the stones in the camp, and also marked the spot in the river where the priest stood with the ark. Now, Reverend Lewis's latest sermon, it kind of felt like a heartfelt call, just like Pastor Quick's, to remind us of God's faithfulness. But he also added that we also need to live in gratitude. He drawed inspiration from Joshua chapter 4, and he shared the story of how Joshua built a personal memorial to God in the river, an act of praise and remembrance of God's provision and goodness, even in the midst of all the challenges he was under. Now, Reverend Lewis invites us to think about how God has shown up in our lives, how he's performed miracles, and he's provided for us, even in times of struggle or even when we're being disobedient. I think it's so poignant that he reminds us that, gratefulness, we have to have a grateful heart no matter what's going on. We can't remember God's goodness, right, Risa?
Right. Like, I strongly agree with that.
It reminds me of how Oprah was always talking about gratitude journals. Remember that time in the 80s and 90s she was talking about gratitude journals all the time?
Oh yeah, like I remember going to the book fair and they would have like gratitude journals.
Yeah. I think we as a nation and maybe even the world have to get back to that. Because if you have to, some of us can think mentally every day about what we're grateful for on their walks or as they're getting ready for work or before they go to bed at night in their prayers. But some of us that our lives move so fast, you need to actually carve out time and actually physically have a way to make yourself stop. And gratitude journals make people stop and write down 5 things that they were grateful for.
Yeah, because I feel like if you don't take that time out to give gratitude and you're always focused on what you don't have, it'll never be enough.
True. Now, through powerful storytellings and parallels with Israeli journey to the promised land, the sermon reminded us that God's promises are always fulfilled in his perfect timing. Whether through unseen works or grand acts of grace, we're challenged to honor God with his own memorials of faith, celebrating his works both privately and publicly, not just after a miracle unfolds, but also during miracles in our lives. We got to remember to acknowledge him. That's the hard part. We sometimes when we're going through it, everyone says, "Oh, thank you, Jesus, thank you, Lord, nothing but the goodness covered by the blood," right?
Mhm.
But when they're after and they're over with, to remember to look back and say, I'm so grateful for that he did that for me. And to say in your prayers, I haven't forgotten, Lord, how good you are, how good you've been. And I know how good you'll be in the future to me.
I feel like I've seen people do that when they are at the place where they want to be. Then they go back and say, I thank God for those, for those moments where I didn't know
Hmm.
why I was going through it, but now that I'm here, I'm thankful. But in those situations where you're not where you want to be,
Yeah.
I don't know what they always saying like, thank you for putting me through those trenches because I'm still not where I want. I don't know. I haven't really seen that too often.
Yeah. I mean, I think when people feel hopeless, you hear a lot less gratitude. And that's why Reverend Lewis and Pastor Quick are reminding people of the good, to remember the goodness of God and to lean on their faith. Now, Reverend Lewis, he also shared an uplifting reflection on Christ's redemptive love. He recalled how Christ gave his life for us on the cross and rose again and offered hope and salvation. His message was just a stirring reminder to express our gratitude and blessings for the grace and deliverance we're already receiving. I think everyone should give it a chance to watch it. He has a feeling in his voice when he preaches that reminds you very much of Martin Luther King Jr., where he's like, he has a certain rhythm and a cadence he does. And I know it's very distinct for him. He's not imitating anybody. So if you get a chance to watch his inspiring sermon, you'll realize how much he wants everyone to lean into remembrance and gratitude to deepen our faith. Like you do these things to transform your everyday walk with God. You don't just do them just to do them. There's a purpose to the things you're supposed to be doing. Like it's one of the fruits of the Spirit. So you can view Reverend Dr. Andre Jermaine Lewis's sermon, Things Remembered, on the Lily Grove Missionary Baptist Church's YouTube channel. So when you get a moment, please check it out. Now, let's move on to one of the segments I adore. Risa, who's the Dove of the Day today?
It's time to celebrate an amazing person doing amazing things in this world. This is Dove of the Day.
So, Dove of the Day is brought to you by Prayer Bowls. So, our Dove of the Day for today is actually Christopher Gutierrez. Just a brief backstory. So, Tiffany Slayton is a 27-year-old woman from Georgia who was found alive after being missing for nearly 3 weeks in the Sierra National Forest. Thanks to the Vermilion Valley Resort owner Christopher Gutierrez, who discovered her when reopening the resort for spring. Tiffany had been reported missing on April 29th after her parents lost contact with her, and despite extensive searches hindered by heavy snow, she emerged from an unlocked cabin near the resort seeking shelter. After being given a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, she was then taken to the hospital for evaluation, but was otherwise in good condition. Her survival in such harsh conditions is considered remarkable, highlighting her resilience and the outdoor skills instilled by her parents.
I remember when we came across this, everybody's been talking about this, since she's been found on 3 weeks to be missing. And then they found her so far away from where they were looking for her. Wow. I'm very grateful that Chris decided at his resort to keep those cabins unlocked for any hiker that might be in very dire conditions can seek refuge.
That was my first thought. Like, if those resorts were not unlocked, like who, like I don't even know what could have happened to her if she wasn't able to go in and seek refuge for the time being.
Yeah, because she had a bike, they said, and she had some provisions, like a tent and other things, but she had to ditch those things when it came to just trying to take care of herself. I think they had a blizzard or something or some really bad storm that hit, and she was just trying to look for cover at that point.
Right. Like they had like quite a few different snowstorms that she basically needed to find shelter from. So I'm just like, the fact that she is, that she even survived all that is a blessing in itself.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if I could handle all of that. I'm not like an outdoorsy person, so I don't even know like what to do.
I think it's great she had her sleeping bag. That's one of the things that can help insulate her, from some of the elements. And then she had parents that really, I think her parents had said on Instagram that their kids didn't watch very much TV. They were always out learning how to do things out in nature and stuff like that. And so they really believed in the adventurer spirit in their household, which saved her life, I think. I think it saved her life, being an adventurous person.
Right. I think so too, because it's like I went out as a kid, but it was just like to ride bikes and play basketball. I wasn't like, I did have some friends that were like in the Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, so they could probably survive. I don't know about myself.
Well, I took girls out into the woods and stuff and do those life skills and all that stuff, those survivor skills, making a fire and how do you, put up a tent and how do you cook on a fire and all that kind of, what can you eat and not eat. And it's quite challenging because a lot of young women, when you take them camping, they want to take a lot of their stuff with them. They want all the beauty stuff with them. And I tell them, you're around other girls, you're going to look like the rest of us, but they still want to take makeup, you can't get them out of that, and I think it's unfortunate because when a person gets so into seeing what they look like with their face dolled up or so into Instagram filters, you forget the natural beauty of your face because you're so used to the makeup or so used to the filter. So one good thing about camping and, being out in the elements, it makes you get back to basics. It's okay that your hair is up in a ponytail. It's okay that, you did not put on lashes. Girls are putting on lashes, but put on lashes and things. You don't have to do that much stuff to go out and catch a fish and fry a fish and tell stories over a campfire.
Yeah, it's like my issue isn't so much the glam, because don't get me wrong, I do like glam, but I'm also like, I could be natural. My issue is I don't do bugs. I don't like bugs because it makes me like,
Yeah.
so
That
that's
is
why.
an issue. A lot of young women had a problem with what do we do if bugs, what do we do if we are too hot? Some people don't want to be hot at all. They don't want to sweat at all. You can tell them how much you're going to go into the nice river or the nice pool or whatever you have, because some cabins have pools. So you can tell them all the wonderful things you can do and the bonding and the testimony that could happen especially at a church camp. But no, yeah.
Yeah, like I remember when I think I was in the fourth or fifth, I think the fifth grade, we had like this overnight camping trip called Stokes. So we were there for like, I think probably 3 days, 3 or 4 days max. Like obviously, we had some students' parents were the chaperones because there were a lot of us going. It was like our whole grade. But I remember, like, I didn't mind the elements, but I remember I had to get like a full thing of not Raid, but whatever that bug repellent spray was, because it was just like I was getting
Like
bitten.
off?
Yeah,
Off?
off. So I
Okay.
remember spraying myself with that because I don't listen. I'm that girl that every time we're outside in the elements, somehow, some way, I'm getting bit by a mosquito or something. So by day 2, I was over it. I was just like, I'm ready to go home. It's hot. I'm getting
I can
bit.
understand that.
I can't.
I can
I can't do
understand that.
this.
It definitely tells you what you're made of. So for Tiffany to go through as a young person, knowing that she'll be okay and surviving off the land for 3 weeks, and they found her, she's like, I've been eating leeks. I could really go for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. That's kind of good that her parents poured in her enough survival things, because our kids today, they're mostly watching TV and playing video games. I don't know how many of them you could say if I give you this tent, could you go out in the backyard and put it up in like less than 20 minutes? A lot of them be like, if you give me a video, no video. It has instructions in the back. Go give it a shot. They'll look at you like you're crazy because they do everything with technology.
Yeah, I was gonna say now I can do it if I have paper instructions.
Yeah, paper instructions will be with you and the tools you need to use, along with the tent itself and the stakes and everything. But there's been many people that, when it comes to doing little things, it's hard. So when there is a disaster in your city or a national disaster, it's hard to know how to navigate and what to do first. And that's why everybody runs to the grocery store and gets a bunch of toilet paper, a bunch of water, and then they don't know what to do after that.
Right.
You got to tell them, do you have a flashlight? Do you have a radio that has batteries? And you got to walk them through the rest of it because they only remember the couple of things they've seen their parents do or their neighbors do, which is get toilet paper and get water and get food. They don't remember the rest of the stuff you have to do.
Yeah, I feel like that's the equivalent of a story that I heard a couple years back when I was watching The View, and this mom had like let her kid go to New York City to Times Square by himself. And she was like, yeah, I did it on purpose. Like she dropped him in the middle of Times Square and said, basically, figure out how to get home. And everyone's like, why would you do that?
Oh no, child abuse.
And
I don't like that. That stuff could, if that would have went bad, if somebody, a pedophile or somebody would have picked them up, it would have been bad. So I really, wow. How old was he?
I can't remember. I don't remember how old he was, but he had to be maybe like somewhere between like maybe 6th or 7th grade. So maybe like 11, 12-ish.
But there were adults nearby that were watching him though, right?
I don't think
Hopefully.
so. I don't think so. I do work because I remember this because, okay. It was a couple years back. It was during the summertime. It was on The View. And she was on there trying to, because it made the headlines. If anybody has a story, feel free to send it to us.
Send it to Risa at withquickness.com.
But, the mom caught a lot of flack because they're like, oh, why would you do that? Like, your kid could have got kidnapped or whatever. And her thing was like, listen, I need to make sure that, that my kid knows how to get home. Now, of course, are there other ways to do this? Of course, like, taking your kid to New York and like, staying with your kid and showing them how to do it. But it's like, I could understand why for certain things such as camping or teaching your kid how to, navigate home, you might do something drastic like that. I wouldn't recommend it.
I don't think that's good. I think like most young people don't leave home until they go to college. And they go with their parents on college tours. If you ever notice anything about college tours, they always have the students that are at the college giving them the lay of the land of the college, right? And they lead the tours, not professors, not other, not advisors, but fellow students lead students throughout the campus. And they do that because they're speaking the language in a way that it can resonate and it can reach them better. Sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So she wanted her young 8-year-old to learn how to navigate, how to get home, drop them off in the city, get home. It would have been great if she would have also dropped off a teenager with her son and said, let him help him figure out how to get home. Because we've tried everything and it's not getting in his ear the importance of getting home. And try your best to let him lead more than you. Then your young person is safe with someone that's hopefully a cousin, an older brother, an older sibling, something like that. And they're going through the process. And it's not going to be fun. I mean, part of it's going to be like, what do we do now? And the older kid's going to be like, what do you think we should do? Because you know how older kids are. It's like, what do you think? How you have it. He would remember it more and be less afraid, or she would be less afraid, knowing they have the safety net of not the parent, but someone that would make sure this goes okay. That if God forbid, I fall and I stumble and I hurt myself, this person will be like, oh, no problem. I got you. We're going to get you cleaned up. And they would take care of you in a way. I'm not saying they would baby them and not help them get home, but they would help them get through the process. That one show where they take the stars and drop them out in the woods and they have that guy. What's the name of that guy? Grill something. I forgot what his name is. But he's with them telling them to live off the land and killing animals and stuff till they get to the part where they get to get picked up. And so many stars have done it with him. And my first thought was, one, he's taking them out their comfort zone, which is what they want to do, what they signed up for. They had a choice in it. And they're learning a life skill. This young man didn't have a choice. His mother woke up one day and said, I'm dropping you off in the city. I have a problem with that. At least have the kid know, by the time you're 16, you're going to have to, have a survival test of, trying to get back home. We'll give you what you need and you'll be going with your older cousin so-and-so. But we're going to drop you off in New York City and you're going to get back. At least the kid knows it's coming and the kid has a choice. You're like, if the kid can go, I don't want to do that. And they say, I don't want to do it all the way up to their 16th birthday. I don't want to do it. Then you can reevaluate. But to make a kid do it, I worry about that, Risa. That might be a little bit up there with child abuse. I don't know.
But see, when I watched the episode again, this is like from a couple years back, she didn't say that like her kid was like, oh, he was traumatized. He actually enjoyed it. It's like she only caught backlash that public was like, oh, that's horrible. And then she also brought up too, great example, right? So sometimes when people get divorced, people, the mother or the father or what have you might live on opposite ends of the country. So in that case, the kid is on the plane by themselves. Yes, they may have a chaperone, but your kid could still get snatched. But
yeah, usually the airlines have to know you have an unaccompanied minor, and there's a whole process for that. But I get what you're saying. The kid would be less afraid, and the kid at this point seemed to like the adventures like that. Well, that's different. Right. The kid liked the adventures and has agreed to some of it. I can understand her testing it, but the way she tested it without anybody nearby, I don't like that. I think the kid should have somebody that's shadowing or nearby watching the progress, because anything can happen. Anything can happen. And if it goes, you can't give a kid their innocence back. No matter how much you wish things didn't happen, you can't rewrite time and bring somebody's innocence back once it's taken.
Right. Like I know there was another news anchor, I think it was Hoda. Yeah, she was talking about how her child wanted to go to the store by themselves. Now the store so the length from their house to the store is like probably like up the street, but because Hoda is close with her neighbor, she told everybody like, hey, my kid's gonna go up the street to the store, like, and just keep an eye out. So like she did it that way, so the kid thought that they were just going by themselves, but everyone was looking out and making sure that like, hey, like, everything's copacetic.
Yeah, I remember the first time I gave you and Nicole money and said, go in the subway and get your subs yourself. Y'all looked at each other like, what? And y'all went in there. You said, you're like, you're for real? I'm like, yeah, I'll be in the car. Go get your subs. And then y'all came back happy as larks, but I was right there. I was only like a couple car lengths away from the store,
Right. Yeah, you were like right in front of the store. So it wasn't like we were walking 10,000 miles.
No. And you do small things like that to give young people courage, but also realize that, the hovering over you as a parent, the helicopter parent, it has to end at some ages. Some things have to end and the autonomy has to begin, and you do it in stages so that it's less jarring. Wow, that's pretty interesting. It's very interesting. But Tiffany was prepared for what she went through, even though it was a lot longer than you thought. And if it wasn't for Chris, who is our dove of the day, if Chris did not unlock those cabins, it would be a different story, no matter how much training she might have had or how smart she was. Elements can still take a lot of souls out. And I think she's the longest. I think the police said she's been missing longer than any other hiker and still be alive. Usually the longest was only like 6 or 7 days before they had to be found, And because after that, most likely it would be a body. And she was so lucky that she, had provisions, and she was smart, and she was very far from where they were looking for her. But she definitely walked and moved and biked until she got somewhere where she could be safe.
Wow.
Thank you so much for providing Dove of the Day today, Risa.
You're welcome.
Now let's move on to the screening room.
It's time for that weekly movie review in the screening room.
Today's screening room is brought to you by Netflix. They're not a sponsor of the podcast, but they have a wonderful documentary short that I wanted to share. It's called The Quilters. It's directed by Jennifer McShane. It features Jimmy Williams, Richie Sanders, William Chili White, Fred Brown, and Christopher Potter. Now, the documentary, the Quilters, offers a deeply moving glimpse into the lives within the South Central Correctional Center. It's a level 5 maximum security prison located 2 hours south of St. Louis, Missouri. At the heart of this story lies a tiny sewing room, a stark, windowless space that transforms into a sanctuary of creativity and resilience. Here, several incarcerated men gather daily to design and quilt and craft quilts, each one destined to become a heartfelt birthday gift for a foster child. Through the lens of the quilters, viewers can witness the profound emotional journeys of these men. Each quilt becomes more than fabric and stitches. It's a labor of love, pride, and purpose. I like this film because it captures not only their individual struggles and triumphs, but it also talks about the collective rhythm that emerges between people that are working together. And they work to make seamless patchworks of humanity. The sewing machines hum like a shared beating heart. Their synchronized efforts echo the strength and beauty of community, even within unimaginable confines. I like this movie so much, Risa. I found myself thinking about my grandmother's quilts and how she talked about all the work that went into it. Because when I was younger, the older ladies of the church would get together and make quilts. They would get pieces of fabric, of clothes that were worn, no one was wearing anymore, and they would make beautiful quilts. And they also put ribbons and stuff throughout it, so it had a nice uniform pattern. And to see these incarcerated men talking about design and pattern, and my quilt will have XYZ, and I like to get my colors from X. It was really nice. It reminded me of those women that I saw sitting there and the kind of things they would say as they're picking out and putting together quilts.
Yeah, like I feel like the whole creation of a quilt is like it is a adventure in itself because you're like trying to figure out what fabrics you want to use and honestly what patterns you use and those patterns tell a story. So
Hmm.
to have them do that and create this beautiful garment for someone to have is like it's definitely like a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I mean, I just really loved it. The cinematography brings every detail to life, framing the callous hands in motion and the vibrant fabrics. I mean, the designs that they were doing. It was only a half an hour long, like 33 minutes, right?
Mhm.
But you can see how the children were so happy to get these. They would write notes back to the prison about saying how much they loved their quilts, and being thankful for their quilts. Because these kids had experienced their own hardships. So to have like this full circle moment of connection in the community and hope and healing, I kind of like that. Like, it's like two totally different worlds were brought together by this program. Powerful stories. The other thing I liked about it was even in confinement, you can still tap into your creativity as you have hope. And you can still do acts of kindness that can kind of ripple beyond your situation. So I like that when you think beyond yourself, you can still make a difference.
Yeah, I feel like, those types of programs like within the prison are definitely needed to help the rehabilitation process and, also just like you said, to spread positivity throughout the world.
Yeah. The themes of this documentary short is creativity, resilience, acts of kindness within an unexpected setting, life choices, jail, connection, hope, healing, redemption, and social change. Like I said, you can watch The Quilters on Netflix this month. You can also see the trailer for this film at www.withquickness.com. Now let's move on to our final segment before the Bema seat.
Come before the Bema seat. Come before the Bema seat. Where life's journeys and stories meet. Every week, testimony, yeah, of the one who brings hope and victory. With joy and reverence, we will sing our praises to the King of Kings, the Bema seat. Come before the Bema seat, the Bema seat. Come before the Bema seat.
Today's story Victor Fontanez, better known as VicBlends, is a walking testament of perseverance and passion. He grew up as an army rat, the oldest of four siblings. Now, he was born in Germany, and he later found himself coming to the United States and then moving from Texas to Lafayette, North Carolina. He remembers being a small, sensitive kid who sometimes was picked on and bullied. But even then, he had an innate ability to soak up lessons and advice, trying to distill Sunday sermons into his words to friends that his friends could understand, as if one kid could teach another about redemption. Now, his life reached a meteoric, Hollywood-esque kind of origin story, but in real life, it hit pretty hard in October 2023. That's when everything seemed to change. At first, every little success sent a jolt through his veins, a euphoric high that felt like he was unstoppable. He said, and I quote, "My mind is running almost 1,000 miles an hour. You kind of feel like you got everything in the world figured out." Victor explained, "I cracked the Da Vinci Code on every secret in the world." That's what it felt like. Yet that high didn't last him. It came crashing down in a crushing, consuming darkness that hurt not only emotionally, but physically. Days without rest turned into despair, which caused him to lose everything. One day, a friend finally recognized what was happening to Victor and urged him to seek a professional. A diagnosis came back, and it was clear, yet kind of difficult to accept. At 24 years of age, Victor learned he had bipolar 1 disorder. For someone who had long defined himself as a positive force capable of transforming every setback into an opportunity, this new realization was a seismic shift. He says, and I quote, "For the rest of my life, I'm going to change things," he admits. This acceptance didn't come easy. "It doesn't feel normal," he said. "It definitely doesn't feel normal." But that diagnosis gave him a new lens through which he views both himself and the work that he does. So instead of burying the emotions, he began to channel his emotions, using these experiences to deepen his connections with the people that sat in his barber chair. He listened, he absorbed, he wielded their insights to not only improve his craft, but to grow as a person. He said, "Someone told me that God hides the best resources in the world. Diamonds and golds are found when you dig for them. They don't just lay on the surface." And perhaps that's how he sees his own diagnosis now, not as a limitation, but as something to be mined for strength, wisdom, and clarity. Victor's philosophy ties deeply into the symbols he carries, like his brand and even his tattoo, planted. To him, it represents a tree, enduring through life's seasons. The vibrant greens of summer, the fiery hues of fall, the stark bareness of winter, and the hopeful bloom of spring are all represented in the phases of a person's life. He said, "Unless you remove your roots, you'll stand tall enough through whatever it is, through all 4 seasons. I believe being planted is just being grounded in who you are and what you believe." Isn't that wonderful, Risa? I mean, he has a clothing line, Planted. Now I kind of want a shirt or something because I didn't know it meant that when he first formed it. But doesn't that sound so cool? Let me just finish up and we'll talk about it on the other side. Now, walking out of Victor's space, of his barber space, a person can walk out with a clean cut, the sharpest beard that they ever received in their life, but he'll also carry more than just a polished look. He'll leave with VicBlends' philosophy of being planted. The wisdom that Victor shares as the TikTok barber preacher, that they're just not just words. It was life in its rawest and they're words. They're not just words. It was life in its rawest, realest form. Lessons dug deep like gold and diamonds. I really adored learning about Victor. And when you go on TikTok or Instagram, you'll see that he's very straightforward and transparent with what has gone on in his life, how he had so much and he lost so much when he was in a manic episode, and then how he rebuilt everything back up. What do you think of this story, Risa?
I actually love this story, and I definitely want to get a shirt from his line. So I had no idea, like, the meaning behind it until you just, spoke about it.
And one of the highlights of his career is he actually did a haircut for Barack Obama. He's done Tom Brady, a lot of other people. If you go on his Instagram and his TikTok, he just got engaged to his fiancee. He had once lost her because of his manic episode when he was not diagnosed yet. But now he's taking his medication. He is, living his life with purpose. He understands what he needs to do to keep being centered. And he's leaning heavily on the Lord through all of it.
I think like this story is like a beautiful thing about how it's okay to get help, and how, when you lean on getting help for your mental state, and also leaning on God, like, the beautiful things that could come about from that.
Yeah, and it reminds you of transformation, and that when God has you, even if you do lose a lot, he can restore. He can restore. He's living a really happy life right now. And I just adore the story. We wish him and his fiancee the best. I mean, the pictures of her being surprised in the park, oh my gosh. He had everything set up just perfect, Risa. She was totally not expecting anything, but yet her nails were done. She looked great. Her glam was good. So he made sure he proposed on a day where he made sure that she had like a take care of yourself girls day where she looked really nice before he surprised her. So they did he did a really good job. Very romantic, very romantic.
Kudos to him.
Yeah, Victor. So if you would like to share a story from your Christian experience, one that would inspire new and rededicated Christians, please visit www.withthequickness.com and select the Bema Seat tab. There you'll fill out the interview form so we can schedule your virtual interview. You can also just email BemaSeat@WithQuickness to begin our guest process. So, Risa, another episode down. We're doing pretty good now. We're getting in a good rhythm.
Yes, we are getting a good rhythm.
Yeah. I'm glad that, Memorial Day is right around the corner. Everyone's starting to get happy and think about that. The graduations on the college level, the 4 years in the university level are all taking place this month. Rutgers just had theirs. Went to Rites of Passage. That was really nice. Rites of Passage was really a lot of fun. They also did some stomping on the podium. You know how different fraternities and sororities like to get up and pose or do steps, like you would see in a step show. Yeah, I don't know how well we reinforced it, but I was on that podium and it was definitely lively. I'm glad they were always brief step periods and not a very long one. It was a lot of fun though. Graduation is a lot of fun. It's a lot of hope in it. And those that are on that next chapter, enjoy this achievement. Enjoy every bit of it. I know we like to go on to the next thing so fast, but seeing that I got my mothery look on today with my headgear, let me say this to you. Things go by a little too fast. So at graduation time, take the pictures, go see the different people that are in your class that you might not ever see again. Say goodbye to the roommates, or keep in touch, but do all the things so you will have no regrets when you actually pack up those things for the final time on campus and go on to your next chapter. And in high school too, write in the yearbooks, get people to sign your yearbooks and, enjoy the pictures and the graduation because it goes by so fast, Risa. It goes by so fast.
No, it does. Like, I kind of wish, and I don't know if we had it at that time, but I kind of wish I would have gotten like a college yearbook when I graduated to be like, hey, sign some of these things. Because it's like, because obviously I had one in high school and I was like, and I do cherish that. I'll read it from, not all the time, but maybe like once in the blue moon if I am, compelled to. But college is like, there were a lot of people that I, was cool with, and we haven't talked in over like 10 years now at this point. So I'm just like, I would have had something just to capture that time.
Yeah. So that's why I'm telling the graduates, they go through it, make some time to take some pictures because you don't know if you'll get a chance to take that same picture. It'll mean something to you later in life. It really, really will. So we are so grateful that you tuned in today. Our prayer for you is that God reveals to you that he is real and able to meet all your needs according to his glorious riches in Christ Jesus. Have a great rest of the week, everybody, and a great Memorial Day.
Have a great week, everyone.
I've been trying to forget, but you won't let me. Something in my brain wants you. I've been hanging by myself, asking for help, but nothing seems to work on you.
With everything crazy, you're still my source of peace. You filter out the
You
lows,
always
give me
make
what I
me
need.
feel like home, yeah. You never leave my thoughts alone, yeah.
Disconnected, I feel the pressure, I need
You're
acceptance.
the reason I'm going out my mind. I just can't stop thinking about you. You got me feeling some type of way.
Feeling more solid about who the man in the mirror is.
You make me wanna stay in all day.
With everything crazy, you still my source of